I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of post, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I need to get this off my chest because I'm at the end of my rope. For months, I've been walking around like I was in some bad dream, dazed, angry, and feeling like I've been punched in the stomach every time I think about what I found out. It all started when I decided to go through some old boxes in the basement. Nothing special, just clearing out stuff, memories that I thought I knew. That's when I found the letter. It was tucked inside a box of wedding keepsakes, a crumpled note that didn't make sense at first glance. It was from her, my wife, Lisa. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was hurried, shaky, like someone who was scared or ashamed. The letter was a confession. It said she'd been seeing someone else, our best man, Tom, for months. She wrote about the nights she'd gone out, the secret phone calls, the moments she'd sneak away to meet him. I remember sitting there, heart pounding. My palms went slick and the room seemed to close in on me. I read it twice. Then again, it was real. I threw the letter down and stared at the ceiling. My mind raced. How long? How had I missed the signs? I thought she was stressed about work, that she was just distant. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, cold and undeniable. I took a long breath and looked around. The house was dead silent. Outside, the trees swayed in the wind, but inside, everything felt frozen. I needed something more. I went to her side of the closet, and that's when I saw the evidence, her phone, lying face down on the bed. I hesitated, my stomach twisting, then I grabbed it. The lock screen was a photo. It was her and Tom caught in a blurry, hurried shot. Her head was turned just enough for me to see her smile, that secret smile she's been hiding. The caption underneath made my throat tight. Our secret forever. I knew then I'd been blind, that I'd missed everything. My fingers trembled as I unlocked her phone. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed proof. I found texts, endless messages, flirtatious, intimate, downright disgusting. They planned secret meetups, talked about how much they hated lying to me, how perfect the lie felt. I scrolled through them, each one worse than the last. I feel like I'm still in shock just writing this. How could she do this? How long has she been lying, and why? I confronted her that night. I sat her down, the phone clenched in my fist, and I looked her straight in the eyes. She lied, tried to deny it first, then broke down and admitted everything. She said she felt trapped, that she loved me but wasn't in love anymore. She called it a mistake, a moment of weakness. I remember her saying, "It meant nothing, I swear." Yeah, right, that's what they all say. I told her I knew about Tom, about the messages, everything. Her face went pale and she started crying. Not the sorry kind, more like a broken girl who knew she'd ruined everything. That night I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling everything crumble inside. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the fact that I'd trusted her, that I'd loved her. All those years, all that effort, and for what? To find out I'd been played. I promised myself I wouldn't just cry and fold. If she wanted to lie, I'd make damn sure she regretted it. The worst part, knowing she'd been lying to my face during our wedding rehearsal dinner. I remember her smiling, laughing with everyone, acting like everything was perfect. Meanwhile, she was cheating on me with Tom, not just behind my back but right in front of my face. I want to punch myself for missing it, for being so blind. I'm telling you, it's like waking up in a nightmare. But I'm not letting this go. I've got a plan. I know exactly what I'll do next. I just need to figure out the best way to execute it without ruining everything I still have left. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now. I'm still trying to breathe through the rage, but if anyone out there ever suspects something's wrong, trust your gut. Because when you finally see the truth, it's a punch to the stomach you don't forget. After I found the letter and scrolled through her texts, I felt like I'd been punched again and again. My hands were clenched so tight, I thought I'd break the phone. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I stayed still. I needed to think. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying what I saw, her smile in that photo, the way her voice used to soften when she called me honey, the way she'd look at me with her eyes full of love. All that had been a lie. I felt like I was living someone else's life. The next morning I knew what I had to do. I couldn't confront her again. She already broke down that night. I decided I'd gather more evidence and prepare a plan. I needed to see how deep this really went. Was there more? Were there other guys? Or was Tom just the tip of the iceberg? I broke into her email account. I don't care if it's wrong, I needed to see everything. She wasn't careful enough, or maybe she thought she could hide it forever. I found more messages, flirty, suggestive, sometimes outright explicit. They'd plan trips, sneaky rendezvous, even talk about quitting their jobs to run away together. What struck me most was how comfortable she was in those messages. She complained about my boring routine, how I wasn't exciting anymore. She said she felt trapped with the life we built. That's when I realized the scope of the betrayal. This wasn't just a fling, it was an affair she'd nurtured for months. I also found a calendar she kept, marked with days she met Tom, times, locations. I saw the dates of their secret meetings. I felt a sick, hollow feeling in my stomach. All those moments I thought were normal, mundane, she was with him. Damn it. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I'd trusted her with everything, my heart, my life, and she was out there lying, sneaking around behind my back. I felt the heat rise in my chest like a flood of raw anger. I decided I needed a plan. If I was going to do something, it had to be precise, not reckless. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal just as I had. But I also wanted to make sure I stayed in control of the situation. First, I went online and started researching revenge strategies, ways to make her regret her choices without breaking everything apart immediately. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed or think she could just lie her way out. I wanted her to see what she'd lost. I didn't want to go for some petty revenge. I needed her to understand the damage she caused. I wanted her to feel vulnerable, exposed, like I felt when I read those messages at dawn. I decided that I would set up a situation where she'd be caught red-handed, but in a way that was clean, logical, undeniable. I remembered the spare key she'd given me for her phone. She's always been careless about her passwords, thinking she was so clever. I snuck into her email again and set a trap. I created a fake email account that looked like hers, something that would catch her if she ever tried to do something sneaky again. I planned to send her a message, a fake confession, pretending to be Tom. It would be enough to make her panic. I figured out her schedule, when she'd be alone, vulnerable. I even bought a small hidden camera to record her if she made any moves. I was ready to catch her in the act. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I had proof. I'd confront her with her own lies. And I'd make her realize that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. All I could think about was how I'd take back some control, even if it meant tearing everything apart. I wasn't going to let her walk away without feeling exactly what she had made me feel. I wanted her to see the pain she caused, not just with words, but with undeniable evidence. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I set everything up. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. I was going to make sure she knew I knew, and I'd never let her forget it. Now I just needed her to slip up again, and I'd be ready. Next, I'll tell you what happened when I finally put the plan into motion and how everything played out. The days that followed were a blur of meticulous planning and simmering rage. I stayed up late every night, going through her phone, her emails, every piece of evidence I could find. I needed to make sure I had everything lined up before I made my move. I wanted her to trip, to be caught completely off guard, so I could finally end this game of lies once and for all. I set up the fake email account, carefully crafting a message from Tom. It was simple but effective, a confession, a plea for her to meet him, to confess everything in person. I timed it to go out late at night when she was supposed to be home alone. The idea was to create a sense of panic, something to push her into a mistake. The night arrived. I sat in the dark, my phone buzzing softly with the fake message. Her phone was on the nightstand, charging. I kept glancing at her, trying to read her face, but she was asleep. I knew she'd probably check her phone first thing in the morning. That's what I was counting on. Sure enough, just before dawn, her phone lit up. The screen flashed with the message from Tom. I watched her eyes flutter open, then slowly widen as she read it. She sat upright, trembling, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. Her breathing grew ragged, and I saw her fingertips trembling. She whispered, "No, no, this can't be." Her face went pale. She looked around, almost like she was searching for an escape route. After a moment, she shoved the phone aside and got out of bed, pacing the room like a caged animal. I stayed quiet, watching her through the half-open door. This was what I wanted, her to feel exposed, vulnerable, caught. She finally sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face, trying to come up with an excuse, a lie. She kept whispering, "It's not true, it's a mistake, I swear." I stepped into the room. "You're caught, Lisa. No point in lying now." My voice was steady, cold even. She looked up, her eyes pleading. "Mike, I can explain." "Save it," I said sharply. "I've seen enough. All those messages, those plans, you've been lying straight to my face for months." She collapsed on the bed, clutching her head. "I didn't want to hurt you, it just happened. It was a mistake. I swear I never meant to." I cut her off. "A mistake? That's what everyone says, but I'm not stupid. I have proof. Every lie, every secret rendezvous. How long were you planning this? How could you do this to me, to us?" Her sobs broke my heart, I won't lie, but anger edged every word I spoke. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this. I had to do something more, something that hit her where it hurts. I told her I was leaving, packing up what I could. As I gathered my things, I saw her break down even more. She begged, pleaded, told me she loved me, how she was so sorry, but I couldn't hear it anymore, not after everything. Before I walked out, I handed her a folder I'd put together. Inside, there was all the evidence, screenshots, saved messages, the calendar. I wanted her to see it all, to understand she was no longer in control. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with overwhelming sadness. I had the proof she'd betrayed us, broken the trust we built over years. I knew I'd never forget, but I also knew I had to move forward. That morning, I called a lawyer. I wanted to start the divorce process. I wanted to take everything that was mine, my house, my dignity, my pride. The betrayal cut so deep, I knew I had to cut her out. Entirely. I realized that revenge wasn't just about getting back at her, it was about reclaiming myself. I'd lost a lot, sure, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me completely. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. The house is quiet now. I've handed over the keys and started the paperwork. I still feel the ache in my chest, but I also feel lighter somehow. I never thought I'd get to this point, but I'm finally taking back control. If I could give one piece of advice, it'd be this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Because in the end, the truth has a way of coming out, sometimes the hard way. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I thought the hardest part would be confronting her, or finally seeing the truth in her face. Turns out, the real pain came after, when everything started to settle in and I was left alone with my thoughts. For days, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots every time I looked around the house, expecting to find another piece of evidence, another lie. The worst part was the silence. The house felt empty without her, like the walls were echoing with all the unspoken words. I kept replaying our last conversation, her desperate tears, her frantic apologies. I knew she was genuinely upset, but that didn't fix what she'd done. Nothing could. One thing I did that helped was cleaning out her things. I packed up her clothes, her jewelry, her little keepsakes that I used to see as symbols of our life together. Now, they just felt like weights around my neck. I didn't want to throw everything away. I kept some, just to remember what I was losing, and I burned the rest quietly in the backyard, watching the flames swallow her memory. It might sound petty, but it gave me a weird sense of closure. Watching her stuff burn, I felt a small flicker of satisfaction, like I'd taken back some control. I wanted her to know I wasn't just going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I was taking action one way or another. The betrayal was relentless. I kept asking myself, why? Why she thought she could get away with this, why she thought she could just walk into another man's arms and nothing would happen, why she never told me the truth. I replayed every moment, her smile, her touch, the look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. It all felt like a sick, twisted puzzle I couldn't piece back together. But I knew one thing: I had to move forward. I started seeing a therapist just to keep my head clear. I couldn't afford to fall apart completely. Every time I felt overwhelmed, I'd sit in my car, take a deep breath, and remind myself I'm still here. I still have options. I still have dignity. One day, I finally had enough. I went to her house just to pick up some things I'd left behind. I didn't expect to see her there. She was with her parents, looking fragile, like she'd aged 10 years in a week. She saw me, her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't say a word. Instead, I handed her a letter. It was straightforward, no punches pulled. I told her I had no interest in revenge anymore, at least not in the way she might expect. I wanted her to understand that I was done fighting for us, that I was done being the fool. I told her I'd start over, rebuild my life from this mess. I walked out, leaving the letter on the table. I felt lighter, like I'd finally taken a step toward healing. I had no illusions about getting her back or fixing what was broken. I just knew I'd be okay. Now I'm focused on myself. I've started dating again, slowly, cautiously. It's weird trying to trust someone new after all that betrayal, but I realize I can't let her define my future. I have to build something new, something better. So here's what I want to say to anyone reading this. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. And don't be afraid to cut people out of your life if they hurt you that badly. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness is you. Stand up, face the pain, and take control. That's the only way to truly move on. It's been a few weeks since I handed her that letter and walked away. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster. Some days, I feel like I'm finally breathing again, and other days the ache hits hard like a fist in my gut. But I'm learning to manage it. I've been focusing on myself, applying the lessons I've learned from all of this. One thing I've realized is how much I'd let her control my happiness. I was so caught up in our routine, in being the good husband, that I didn't see the cracks forming. Now I see the red flags I missed, little things like her distracted gaze, her secretive phone habits, and I kick myself for ignoring them. The truth is, I should have listened to that gut feeling earlier. I started dating again, not seriously, just casually, trying to remind myself what real connection feels like. It's strange, though. After everything, trusting someone new feels like walking a tightrope. I'm cautious. I watch for signs, but I also try to keep an open mind. I know I've got scars, but I refuse to let them define me. The thing I want to emphasize is how important it is to put yourself first after betrayal. I've never been good at that, always the guy who puts others first, who keeps quiet when it hurts. But after all this, I've learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to be selfish for a while. It's okay to pause, to reflect, to rebuild your sense of self. I also reached out to some friends who knew about the marriage, and honestly, hearing their support was a balm for my battered pride. They told me I was stronger than I thought, that I deserved better. That made me feel a little less alone. Sometimes you forget how many people genuinely care, even when you're too proud to ask for help. One thing I don't do anymore is dwell on the past. I don't replay her words, her lies, or her apologies. That's just a trap. Instead, I focus on what I can control, my choices, my mindset, my future. I've started working out again, trying to clear my head. I go for long drives with the windows down, listening to music I love. It sounds simple, but it helps. Every day is a little better. I still get angry sometimes, angrier than I'd like, especially when I think about how she betrayed the trust we had. But I remind myself that her actions are a reflection of her, not me. I didn't fail. I didn't do anything wrong by trusting her. I was honest and open. That's what counts. I'm not perfect, and I still have moments where I want to break down and cry or scream at the injustice of it all. But I'm learning to sit with that pain instead of running from it. I've realized that healing isn't linear. Some days the wound feels fresh again. Other days I see progress. And I know I'll get through this. Eventually, I'll look back on this chapter and see how much stronger I've become. I don't want to carry the bitterness forever, but I also won't pretend it didn't happen. It's part of my story now. So if anyone's out there going through something similar, here's my takeaway. Trust yourself. Don't ignore the signs. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to walk away. You don't owe anyone your happiness, especially not someone who's betrayed your trust. Take the time to heal, and when you're ready, rebuild. Because life doesn't stop even after it shatters. You just have to decide whether you're going to let it break you or make you stronger. It's strange how life keeps moving, even when everything feels like it's fallen apart. After everything I went through, finding the betrayal, executing my plan, walking away, I realized something important. I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. Not the guy I was before, but a new version, one that's learned how to survive and even thrive after chaos. The house is quieter now. I've sold the place, cut ties with everything that reminded me of her, every picture, every memory that was too painful to keep. I've started fresh in a new city, a place where nobody knows my story. It's not easy, but I see it as an opportunity for a clean slate. I still think about her from time to time, not with anger anymore, but with a strange detachment. I don't miss her, but I do miss the idea of what we had before the lies, before the betrayal. That part of me is still healing. I want to believe that someday I'll look back at this chapter and be grateful it happened because it pushed me to grow. Most days now, I wake up with a clearer mind. I take a deep breath, stretch, and remind myself that I am in control of my life. I've learned to set boundaries both with others and with myself. I don't tolerate lies or disrespect anymore. I choose honesty and respect, things I once took for granted. I've also learned that revenge, while satisfying for a moment, isn't the answer. What I wanted was closure, a sense that I could take back the power she tried to steal from me. I got that by walking away, by choosing myself over her. That's what I want others to understand. Sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on, refusing to let betrayal define you. I want to tell anyone reading this, if you're in a similar situation, don't be afraid to face the truth, no matter how brutal. It hurts, it's humiliating at first, but it's the only way to truly get free. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence if necessary, and don't be afraid to walk away. Your happiness isn't worth living in the shadows of someone else's lies. And finally, remember that healing takes time. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate the small victories, getting out of bed, going for a walk, reconnecting with old friends. Those little steps matter more than you realize. This story, my story, isn't over. It's just a new beginning. I've learned that life's hardest lessons often come with the greatest opportunities for growth. So I'll keep moving forward, one step at a time, knowing I've faced the worst and come out stronger. Because at the end of the day, we're all capable of surviving even the deepest betrayal, if we're willing to stand up and decide what comes next.